What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today we are kicking off this season with a look at my favorite games from the start of my climb this season. And we are actually kicking this video off with the very first game that I played this season, and it was a pretty sweet one. We're not going to look at every game though, because I quickly realized that was just way too much. But if you are looking for more content with this exact Arishem list, I also won an Infinity Conquest with it, and I'm going to be putting out an hour-long video going through all of the ins and outs of everything that happened throughout that run this weekend. So subscribe and stay tuned if you want to see more. Plus, I'm doing giveaways again this season, including a giveaway for a season pass. But let's get into this video. I snap on turn one after seeing that my opponent is not playing Arishem, and there's actually a lot going on for me in this game already, as we get to drop a turn 2 Captain Marvel into my opponent's turn 2 Mysterio. Quinjet into Kamartaj is actually really good because we're setting up there for a Blob onto Kamartaj, which is obviously insane. And unfortunately, I can't win the Abbey unless I play Loki, but I don't want to do that. I want to hang on to this Blob because Blob on Kamartaj seems really, really good. And if I can draw Arnim Zola, I can Arnim Zola on Kamartaj, sending those huge blobs and making them bigger in the other locations. But the other thing that is really cool about that is the Quinjet allows me to dodge incoming rogues as well. So I'm kind of like protected from rogue while still able to Arnim Zola my Blob because of Kamartaj. So I thought this was a really cool start to the game. Unfortunately, not going to beat my opponent in the Abbey because I didn't want to play that Loki on turn 3. So now I'm just going to battle for Crown City, try to get a reasonable amount of power in there. My opponent already has Mockingbird in the Abbey, so I didn't really feel like I wanted to try to be competitive in that location. Next, we see a Brood for my opponent in Crown City and a Snap Back. And this is a very awkward turn. I don't have that much I can do if I don't want to play my Loki. So I decided to play Deathlock before playing Gilgamesh, just because Deathlock is one additional power into Crown City, and I felt like that might be relevant. So we'll see how relevant that winds up being by the end of the game, but we are going to briefly take over in Crown City. Unfortunately, Gilgamesh not getting any additional value from its on reveal, and we do draw the Arnim Zola, but I didn't know we were going to draw it, so I didn't set up for it, and now all I can do is Blob in Kamartaj and hope that that is enough. My opponent has double Darkhawk, but we get to double Blob. So we are going to be able to shrink those Darkhawks. I also did not realize my opponent was about to become a Silver Surfer deck at the last second. So now it's actually really close in Crown City. And I mentioned that one extra point that we got from deathlocking our Agent Coulson. Well, that's going to come in handy because now Captain Marvel can move over into Crown City and just barely put the win in our favor, unless my opponent's Mysterio clone is in Crown City. This game got super close, but we dodged the Mysterio and take the win to start off the season for 8 cubes. Like I said, not going to look at every game. There's a lot of retreating in Marvel Snap for 1 and 2 cubes either way, but I figured I'd showcase this game because it was the first game where I got to see Gwenpool in action. But I'm just going to go for a pretty basic Blob Arnim Zola here, which is mostly more or less what this deck is trying to do. I think that it is a really strong line out of Arishem that most people still aren't playing. I'm definitely behind it here. As you can see, both Blobs getting up to over 30 power. Yeah, just incredible. I also wanted to include my first game featuring Hydra Bob. My opponent got it from Triskelion here. Might also be a bot opponent, I'm not totally sure. But this game also gets really wacky. I Loki right before X-Mansion reveals a Havoc for my opponent and a Null for myself, which I might be able to do some weird stuff with some of these cards my opponent just gave me. I come up with this and I snap, but my opponent uses Deathlock to destroy Hydra Bob. I thought maybe 50-50 Hydra Bob could land in Quantum Realm, and that would be a cool way to win that location. But I also feel confident with Havoc limiting my opponent's total energy. that I should be able to find a win with this one, and I used Moon Girl to make a bunch of extra copies of these cheap cards Loki gave me. I do take priority here, which probably is what makes my opponent retreat. I also get another Angel from my deck after destroying the one that Loki gave me, and then I'm going to drop Bucky Barnes plus Carnage, which will make my Null bigger and also win me in Quantum Realm. So despite maybe, that was up against a bot, which is part of the reason I'm not showcasing every game either, a lot of bot games, but I still thought that was a really exciting one, and I also felt like this game had a lot to talk about. So this game, importantly, I played this game on Wednesday while Muir Island was the featured location. And initially I'm just thinking, okay, we've got Adelon. I want to dump out my hand. I'm just going to dump these cards into Adelon, until I thought more about the featured location, and I decide I'm going to play to the other two locations. That way I can get a bonus if Muir Island reveals as one of those two, which I think is something that not everybody's always thinking about on these featured location days, but it's definitely a good way to get an advantage here, just keeping the featured location in mind, even if you didn't necessarily build around it. And I almost went too heavy into the featured location, was about to throw Rogue into Muir Island until I realized, wait, no, let's take my opponent's Quinjet now, and we are going to Rogue that Quinjet. They're going to play a Viper into Muir Island. It is an Arishem mirror matchup. And then on this turn, I actually draw another Quinjet. I was thinking maybe I will just Shang-Chi into Muir Island, but now I might as well Quinjet into Muir Island, start getting additional power out of that. Could also Quinjet into Quantum Realm. Both of those are reasonable because Quinjet doesn't have that much power, but either way, super happy at the start, at least, to be double Quinjetting. My opponent is going to Enchantress the Rogue, so we will only have one Quinjet here. Adelon draws us Baron Zemo plus Darkhawk, which will easily win in Quantum Realm, but that might not be something I want to just give away immediately. So I'm going to hang on to the Darkhawk and not really spend my energy this turn, just drop down a Baron Zemo into Muir Island and get even more advantage out of that location. And actually wind up getting pretty advantaged here. My opponent plays a Yondu, but our Baron Zemo is going to find yet another Quinjet, a Quinjet that Arishem gave my opponent. So now we are double Quinjetted once again, feeling pretty good. And I get to Adam Warlock. I'll have to Adam Warlock into Quantum Realm, but that's still pretty cool to be able to get an additional card. And I could play the Colleen Wing, but next turn I could play Darkhawk plus Shang-Chi. My opponent would have to steal priority, but I think it's still worth it just hanging on to the Shang-Chi and potentially getting some use out of it. My opponent's going to play an Agent Coulson and a Rogue to steal a Quinjet back, which is what I thought was the most fun part of this game, just all of the back and forths with Quinjet, and then the Adam Warlock actually doing something. Opponent going to discard a Black Cat, and unfortunately we do have priority on this final turn, but very good. Adam Warlock draws me a Mockingbird, which is a fantastic draw. Now I get to battle for all three locations, and I'm feeling pretty confident here. We'll see what my opponent comes up with. Yeah, not even battling in Quantum Realm. They're just going to let me have it. The only way they battle for Quantum Realm there is if they have a Darkhawk themselves. Or like maybe they could play their Rogue, but they already played their Rogue in Muir Island. Totally forgot about Black Knight, by the way. That gets me a 3-power Ebony Blade. My opponent's Shadow King, not quite gonna do it. They do take the lead in Muir Island, but I get the victory. I did also want to showcase a game where I got a Hydra Bob off of Arishem. One of the selling points that I said for Arishem is you're going to get the new cards for free as they come out, and you'll get to play with them. This is actually a really good game for Hydra Bob. It gets to win in Eternity range early, and then I get to snap and 50-50, maybe throw it over into Sanctum Sanctorum, and then my opponent's in an awkward spot where they have to like snap to get it out of Sanctorum, or probably just retreat. We get to battle pretty hard for Eternity range here with Nick Fury, but my opponent puts up a good fight themselves with White Queen. And interestingly here, because I just added 3 6-cost cards to my hand, I've got no clue what they just stole. They could have taken my Dr. Doom, or they could have taken my Destroyer. If they took Doctor Doom, I really want to Leech it because then they can put that into Sanctum Sanctorum. If they took Destroyer, I really don't want to Leech it, but I think that this Leech is still worth going for here. So we'll see if that backfires. My opponent hobgoblins me into Jotunheim, but I get to now send those hobgoblins back with Arnim Zola off the top, so that's got to be Arnim Zola this turn. That is really good. I'm going to snap, just seeing how good that is. We'll get to see Hydra Bob move now, but I'm really just snapping because I feel like I'm in a good position with this Arnim Zola on Hobgoblin. But my opponent fills Eternity Range with a Vision, no less. So that is decidedly not great. We are going to send a Hobgoblin over to Sanctorum, so that'll balance out with the Vision though, and then the Hydra Bob actually will move over there. And the Hobgoblin's actually for 9. So, okay, yeah, we're actually doing all right this game, and what else can we do? We can Grandmaster. I mean, we got to play Darkhawk, and it lines up so well with this Grandmaster that we're going to go Grandmaster on Arnim Zola, send it over, do some other stuff, get through the Negasonic Teenage Warhead, which is fantastic. That will hit on Grandmaster, and then we get to send over a pair of Hobgoblins once more, so it wasn't that bad that they canceled my first Hobgoblin. We will ultimately get them all over there, and then Grandmaster will blow up, and I'll reveal a huge Darkhawk. Pretty good game. And to round out this video, I wanted to showcase the game that got me to rank 80. So we are leading things off here with actually just an Okoye. I was thinking about playing the Corvus Glaive, but Okoye off the top on turn 2 is too good to pass up. My opponent's going to White Widow us here, which is a little bit annoying, but Okoye into Stark Tower I think is a fine way to get things started. And then on turn 4, things do get a little bit awkward. So part of the reason I was thinking of playing Corvus last turn is because my hand is kind of bad, but then I draw the best card in my deck. I draw the Blob, so now I'm just hoping that this Corvus doesn't hit the Blob, and that's of course why I'm keeping these other cards in my hand. My opponent gives me a Widow's Bite though, and Arishem is on my side. Corvus is going to discard that Widow's Bite. So that worked out pretty dang well for me. Now I get to play a turn 4 Blob, and I'll play that into Xandar. I was going to play it into Hub to play around a potential future Arnim Zola, but drawing Taskmaster means that it's at least a little bit more incentive to play Blob into Xandar, so that way when Taskmaster copies it next turn, it will steal that 1 additional power. My opponent gets to play a cheap Stature because of my Corvus, so a lot of really silly interactions going on in this one, as now I get to play a 17 power Taskmaster plus a Mockingbird. Might as well just play that into Stark Tower. My opponent already has plenty of great Shang-Chi targets against me, so I'll run that out. I guess I could have played just like Dagger this turn into Stark Tower, and then the Mockingbird would have been free, so maybe that was worth going for. My opponent winds up Shang-Chiing the Blob, but we've got a pretty sizable lead in both of these other 2 locations. So on the final turn, ultimately, I'm just going to decide with this Loki off the top to battle for Xandar. And this game winds up being super close. My opponent moves over their Jeff, but we'll have to see what they have in the hub. They can probably beat me in the hub if they're playing something over there. Could be Shadow King, could be another Shang-Chi, but we are going to drop our entire hand. Oh, it's Darkhawk. Okay, so Darkhawk will take it in the hub. I just had to dodge Mystique there, and it's just a Korg, and it is just barely not enough. 1 more point, and my opponent would have won on differential, but we grabbed the win, and with those 4 cubes, that will put me up to rank 80. Remember to subscribe for more gameplay with this deck and to enter in the giveaway. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel, and then leave a comment on any video that I put out over the next 2 weeks, or even over the full season. Over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to look at the comments and give away a season pass to 1 random commenter that is subscribed to the channel, and then across the season, I will also be giving away premium mystery variants, gold, normal mystery variants, also giving those away this time, and credits. So lots of fun stuff to give away, and let me know if you enjoyed this content. But for today, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.